What is going on? Welcome back to Jiu-Jitsu Outlet. I'm sitting down with a Jiu-Jitsu blue belt, Mr. Oisín Feeney. What is up? A world traveler. How
How
are
you
you doing?
going, Paul?
I'm doing
Yeah,
good.
we're trying. We're trying to get there. We're trying to get around the world, at least.
Well, dude, we met up at Pedigo Submission Fighting and when you were traveling here in the United States, and we had a great time hanging out. I miss you a lot, man. Every time I go back there, it doesn't quite feel the same without you and the other guys there. And I hope you get to come back sometime, man. So
Yeah, it's definitely on the radar. There's a couple of places in America would love to go back and train. I know the other two guys, Alfie and Niall, that I was out with. They're dying to get back, but there was something special in the water out in Mount Vernon. That was something else.
absolutely, there
Yeah,
definitely is some special secret sauce going around there for sure. I think it's the
definitely.
secret sauce of friendship and hard training mixed together.
Yeah, and nerve damage.
Yeah, and a lot of sweat.
A lot of sweat. Yeah,
100%. Well, man, I know we actually did a whole podcast together talking all about how jujitsu helps your mental health. We had a great time. And unfortunately, something happened to the audio and the whole thing got deleted. So here we are again to answer that question on the show. And you know what they always say, like things are better the second time. So that the first
yeah,
time I guess was just like the warm up or something.
yeah.
Well, dude, I want to dive into this and get your take on this question. So, how do you feel jiu-jitsu helps your mental health?
Yeah, as I was saying, and we've talked about it a lot, especially when we were together in Mount Vernon. It's a no-brainer. Like any sort of exercise is going to help your mental health, but the way jiu-jitsu has came across my life, I started it when I was in university studying, and I was going into my placement year, which is when I would have been working, like an internship, and I could see just it took all my life habits and made them a bit more healthier. Like I was more focused in my own health and my actual training than I was focused on anything else that I was looking at in my life. Um, the way it takes away stress, the way it helps me deal with stress, and after 2 years of training now, getting my blue belt, competing, training across the world, like the confidence I have in myself and the confidence I have in friends is just it's beyond what it was when I started when I was 21. So it is brilliant. I remember when we were talking the last time and you were asking this question, I was actually in France and I couldn't train for 5 months. So I've been back at it for 2 weeks since a 5 month break. And I can just tell my body is a lot more broken already. But my head, I can feel my head's mending again.
Yeah, what do you feel is like that biggest feeling? You know, when you first come back from a big break, like where do you feel? I guess what do you notice the most is what I'm trying to say.
I think the time off, you'd be thinking in your head, like, and you'd be watching competition, you'd be watching the UFC, and you're like, oh, I would do this, or I would do that, or I would do this and do that. And then you go back to your first class after 5 months and you don't do anything, you just get smashed. And I think I always try to get my friends to start jiu-jitsu and stuff like that. But if you can't enjoy that grind and that hard punishing moment, you're not going to ever get the fruits of it when you're doing good and you're grappling good. So my favorite part is when you are getting beat down because that's where you know you're starting at, and then taking 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years from that point and seeing where you are from where you were getting smashed. It's just I think that's the reward for it. I think that's what gets my mind going and sort of repairs my mind a bit when you are doing that problem solving in such a physical manner.
Yeah, it's like you see how you grow over time and it makes a big deal. It kind of makes it worth it a bit.
Yeah, and then you see when the time off how you fall over time.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you realize all the rust kind of really quickly. You're like, "Oh man, I'm really rusty at this thing. I used to be
Yeah,
really."
yeah, and then especially like you can go back to your basics. You can go back to as basic as just getting your guard passing better, doing your top position better. And when you leave that there for a while and they become more loose and people start punishing you for it, it's fun to go back and tighten them bolts before you go and start trying the fancier stuff or the more advanced stuff. It is so good. I think the basics and the fundamentals is definitely the best thing to go back to when you're starting back up.
Yeah, the fundamentals are just like king of everything if you think about it. It's like you can get your whole game going just around the fundamentals and you'll be okay. But if you have a game that neglects the fundamentals, then you're probably going to get screwed up for sure.
Yeah. My first coach, Cole Porter in Belfast, he always said, keep it simple, stupid. That's what he always said. Keep it simple, stupid. I think there's plenty of people who say that, but if you aren't doing the simple things, you're not going to be able to do the advanced stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You have to have like a well-rounded game in the fundamentals. If you don't, then man, you're screwed up. For
Yeah.
sure. Well, dude, let me ask you this. How do you feel jiu-jitsu helps your life off the mats? Like your relationships with other people or your career or just anything like that?
Uh, there's definitely a good and the bad. There was a time at university where, or at college, for you guys, where definitely my focus, where it should have been on studying, it was going a bit too much on the mats, and I was just getting too obsessed with it. But when I got a wee bit more discipline and remembered why I was there for, I think it really does put everything into perspective. Like if you're having a bad day, and I actually had this last Saturday, if you're having a bad day off the mats, everything's going wrong. It doesn't matter what it is. Could be something as stupid as your car breaks down. For me, it was my car broke down. I was just having a terrible day. Had to be lifted off the highway. It was just terrible. But I knew at 6:30 I was going under the mats, and that was just gonna be like my confession. Like after it, I was just gonna be completely cured. So I think it's a milestone in my week. Like you can have your Monday day, train Monday night. Monday night and Tuesday day, you'll be better. If anything happens, train Tuesday night. It's just like a reset button at the minute. And when I'm going and for college and my relationships, it's just. But I was actually talking to my friend about it, and I was saying to you. So because I came back, I moved from Belfast back down to Derry, and I've just started at a new gym, and I've been there 2 weeks. And in the 2 weeks, the people you meet and the friends you meet, it, because it's not based around like going out and drinking. Like I'm Irish, so a lot of our culture is just you'd go out and meet your friends and you'd have a drink, and it would be all round that being in the bar and having a drink. But having them people in your life that you're able just to be on the mats, you're sober and you're talking about something completely separate, day to day life. You're not talking about work, you're not talking about family or anything. You're just talking about fighting, jiu-jitsu, judo. It is something completely different. Like they're a special type of relationship where it's not just based off going and getting intoxicated. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it is a nice separation they have.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of culture that is based around alcohol, and it's really nice to have something like martial arts where alcohol isn't really a part of the culture at all. And in fact, quite the opposite. Like if you show up drunk at an academy, they'll probably just ask you to leave. It's
Yeah.
not really okay. You can't really just like show up drunk to training or something like that. It's not really a thing. But you see people all the time showing up smelling like marijuana to training, and no one seems to have an issue with that. But I guess what I'm saying is, it's nice that alcohol is not a part of the culture. I think that that's really great. But I mean, the reason alcohol is not a part of it is because alcohol makes you bad at jujitsu, and and things that are bad make you bad at jiu-jitsu are usually not going to be encouraged at a jiu-jitsu academy. Or if you're getting in with a bunch of new friends who are really into that, they're just not going to really want to be a part of that. They're probably going to be more into like talking about their protein intake, or how many calories did you eat that day, or what's your diet look like, or what supplements are you taking, or what's your fitness routine, or hey, do you want to go to the gym later, or things like that. Like, and those are the kind of people that you want to get around to help you out in life. And I feel like jujitsu introduces you to those people, which is awesome. And I mean, that's a big thing that we see happening at places like Pedigo where we met. It's almost like epicenter where people can meet up and all just know that, you know, everyone that you meet there is probably going to be on the same page, or at least close to the same page, because they're all there for similar reasons. And I think that Pedigo is definitely a bit of a more extreme example because people like move there. but any jiu-jitsu academy can be like that, where you can just know that if you stop in at a judo or jiu-jitsu or wrestling or Muay Thai or whatever academy, if you show up there, you can kind of count that those people are going to be good people and that they've probably got a certain list of priorities. And most of the time, those priorities don't include hard drugs or alcohol, which is awesome, especially if you've struggled with that kind of stuff in the past.
Yeah, it's funny. You were saying how people would be more talking about their protein intake. The last chat we sort of got after an open mat, where everybody was sitting around, somebody had the dots on their arms, and he had been doing Cambo. Is it Cambo?
Yeah, Cambo.
Yeah, and that was the whole conversation. It was like the whole academy was talking for 40 minutes about Campbell. It was quite funny because he was talking about the process and all, but like you wouldn't find anybody talking in, especially where I'm from, nowhere else you would find somebody talking about being injected by frog venom to clear himself out. There's only in the jiu-jitsu academy you'd get that.
Yeah, Cambo's a crazy one. I had it done twice, and it's a really interesting experience because they burn you. Like, for people that don't know, they take a little incense stick and they burn you with the tip of it. So it's nothing too crazy. It's not like they, sear you or brand you or anything nuts, but they do like make a little burn mark on your shoulder. And then they take a knife and they put this frog venom inside the hole, and it circulates throughout your entire body. And the crazy thing about it is that you can feel it immediately. As soon as they put it in, you feel it like that. And then you basically they tell you to keep it in your system for as long as you can. And then as soon as you can't tolerate it anymore, you can just like tap out basically and tell them like, okay, I'm done, because it's not pleasant. It's not pleasant at all. It's like a cleansing experience. And as soon as you put your hand up, they come and they put this little oil to take it out and to basically neutralize it. And the second they put this oil on the cut, it goes away. It's crazy. Like, it stops. It begins immediately and it stops immediately. And afterwards, for like 10 days, you just feel euphoric. And that's the crazy thing about Cambo, is the high that you feel comes later. And it comes because of a detox. So it's not because they added anything, but because you took all this stuff out. And while you're having the Cambo experience, you're like puking and you're sweating like crazy, and you push all this stuff out of your body. And you're right, man. Like, most people aren't into that stuff. But jiu-jitsu guys, we're like all ears. We're like, man, where can I get some of that frog venom?
Would you recommend it? Like, because he was talking about the vomiting and puking, but both the guys who had done it, same as you, just say you're completely euphoric. You feel brand new after it.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, I would do it again in a heartbeat. It was super uncomfortable, but again, like I said, the moment that you feel like you can't take it anymore, you just, tap out and you put your hand up, and then they wash it out and it goes away immediately. So it is very uncomfortable, but you can kind of tap out whenever, just like with jiu-jitsu. Whereas other psychedelics like LSD or mushrooms, like if you're having a bad LSD trip, you're stuck there for a couple hours.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas Cambo, it's kind of like, okay, I'm done. All right, let's get this thing. I'm tired of puking everywhere. You can just kind of tap out. And it is really unpleasant, but yeah, you feel so good. It does take until like the next day. So I both times I did it, I didn't really notice it until the day following. Because that day you don't really notice it, but then you wake up the next morning and you just feel like blissful almost. And it lasts for a long time, I found. Especially if you go and do some sort of activity like jiu-jitsu or some sort of physical activity, it just feels like you have unlimited energy. It feels incredible.
Yeah, I think these guys have sort of incorporated it into their like pre-tournament ritual. So like a week or two out from them competing, they do this here, and they feel like it just puts them on another level. So I definitely would consider giving it a try. But
yeah, it's legit and it's legal too, from what I think, at least here.
Yeah,
you just have to get with someone who knows how to do it. How to do it properly.
Yeah,
I don't know how to do it properly. I definitely couldn't administer it. I mean,
that's the thing. The guys doing it in Ireland, like you'd be going to some man's shed out the back. It's not. There's nothing too official about it.
Love it. Love it. Yeah. It's, when I did it, we just did it all out in like a field, basically.
Yeah.
And we had this facilitator who brought the venom, and there you go. Just line up and get your incense stick in your shoulder. And yeah, it was great. Great, good time, fun times. Fun times. But yeah, man, I just feel like jiu-jitsu, kind of bringing it back, it exposes you to these other things, because I definitely wasn't into any of this stuff when I first started training jiu-jitsu. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Like, what were you like before you started training, and how would you compare that with who you are today?
I I was never I was never big into sport. I was always big into music. I always loved the UFC, but I never competed. So the main thing is just my physicality. Like I'm in a lot better shape than I ever was. So from 2 years ago to now, it's like night and day. And then even before that, I think when I was in school as well, it wasn't that I wasn't overweight or anything like that. I never really thought about me like how physical I could be, or like how good shape I could be in, and what that sort of brings. But as that comes, as the confidence comes along, obviously the confidence of martial arts comes along, just your health overall becomes better. Being away for that while and coming back, I thought that like my cardio, especially, would drop, because that was sort of always my like the main thing I would sort of use in rolling. That my cardio was quite good, but it stayed with me, and it helped when I was over in France as well. Like I have good endurance, and that sort of toughness that training jiu-jitsu brings, just it bleeds over to all different aspects. But yeah, looking back 2 years ago, just I'm way more health conscious than I would have been when I was younger.
Yeah, same, man. Like when I first started, I was 225 pounds, and I smoked a pack of cigarettes every day. And mostly I ate like fast food and Pop Tarts and soda and stuff like that. And I just like, yeah, I didn't care about health at all. It wasn't something that I didn't even know about like carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. I didn't know what those things meant. I knew about calories. I'd heard about that. Like I kind of understood calories, but I didn't understand the macronutrients. I didn't know what they were, you know. I hadn't really like I understood there were things on the label you could read, but I had no idea what any of those things meant.
And are you the same? Were you into any sort of sport before you started
Nope,
getting into jiu-jitsu?
not
No.
really. I played sports, like I played basketball growing up, but I wasn't into it. You know, it was just like the thing that you did, and I wasn't good. You know, I was definitely not good at anything having to do with the ball. And I did some judo growing up with, because my dad is a judo black belt, and that's kind of how I got into this stuff. But really, I started getting into it when I was 19, after I got out of high school, basically. But growing up, I was more into video games and more video games, stuff like
Yeah,
that. I wasn't really into sports, for sure.
yeah. There is something to be said for like jiu-jitsu being the sport for the unsporty people. Like
Oh,
I think and there's a lot of people I see now, and like I think to myself, if you would only get on the mats for 2 weeks, you would be a completely changed person. Like it, and people like that, because I know myself, I wasn't very sporty. I know a lot of the best jiu-jitsu people I know from when they were younger or when they were younger are the same. They just, especially here, the sports are like the biggest sport is the GAA, and then it would be football and rugby would be the three biggest sports. But outside of that, there, especially in schools, there's not much different variety. But I think when people get their claws in the jiu-jitsu, it's really really good for them. You're talking to one, you yourself. It has benefited us so much, like so.
Yeah. It's so much more fun than like walking around on a treadmill or doing a spin class or
Yeah,
really anything like that. Like there's so many ways to work out, and a lot of them are really boring, honestly.
yeah. Weights and stuff. It's hard. It's hard to get into.
Dude, I know we got to wrap this up, but I do want to ask you one more thing. Can you talk to us, like, what have you learned from traveling around and training jujitsu in different places, like the United States? Can you tell us, like, what are some of your big takeaways from traveling?
Not all belts are equal. Not all color belts are equal, and it's just something people have to come to terms with. I feel like my time in America, taught me not to get hung up on my stripes, on the color of my belt, where I'm at, because I went over there as a blue belt and I was being dropped on my head by 14-year-old wrestlers in the high school wrestling class. And when that happens, there's no like there's no come to terms with it. It's just that the standard in one place is not going to be the same as the standard in another place, and with that comes the rankings aren't going to be the same. So I have a friend he's a white belt and he's been training a long time and he's really pushing for his blue belt. And I keep saying to him, I was like, you don't want your blue belt. It doesn't matter if you get your blue belt, because you just want to be the best white belt that you can be until they see fit. And even then, you'll get your blue belt and you'll get smashed by a white belt, and then you'll be even more upset. So don't get hung up on belt colors. Just get hung up on your own ability.
Yep, that's a great way to think about it. Like, it's just the belts are all honestly just for that academy. Like, it's an order of ranking of skill level at a specific location. You know, in this room, you're the experienced one. But if you take that same purple belt and take him to another academy and put him against one of their purple belts, completely different story. But it's because at that purple belt, at that academy, that guy's, you know, at that level. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, I've been on both ends of the stick. When I went to Pedigo, I was a blue belt and I was worse than a lot of the white belts there. But then when I left Pedigo and went to Chicago, I went to a couple of gyms in there and I went in there as a blue belt. And what I learned in Pedigo put me in the top of the class and them other places. So it is just between gyms, as you say, and it can be fun. You can have a fun time from it if you put in the work, and then other times it's just a bit demoralizing until you separate yourself from it.
Yeah, you gotta not have that expectation that you're just gonna go in there and beat everyone's ass. It's just not gonna be the case a lot of times.
Yeah, sadly.
Sadly, yeah. Well, and dude, so we were talking a little bit before this how you were training some judo. Can you talk to us a little bit? Like, how do you feel judo and jiu-jitsu are different, and how do you feel like they're similar?
It's just like when people talk about what beats what and what beats what, it is all down to the rule sets. But I think you need to have good judo because all fights start in the feet. And I've been going in there. My cousin's been getting me in, and the classes are brilliant. They're very, very different. Like, and I still much prefer jiu-jitsu in the ground game just because I've been doing it longer. But the judo stand up, the judo stance, the entries into the throws, they're all very, very different from what we normally get taught in in jiu-jitsu. And I actually got told today I was trying. I don't know the Japanese names, but I was trying one of the throws, and he stopped me and says, "You jiu-jitsu guys always do this." He's like, "You're taking one step, two step, three step, not just do one step, bang." And in that class, he completely changed the way I was throwing, so much so that I injured my groin. So.
Love it. Yeah, that's one of the things that I've learned from judo too. It's like all about kind of taking away the steps. Like, when you learn the throw, they teach it in like 10 steps, but then it's all about getting it down to one step as quickly as you can. And I try to apply that to jiu-jitsu too, because he's right. If we think in terms of like 1, 2, 3, 4, that's not as good as if we can just condense everything down into one movement. And that's really what judo is about. It's like, can you get it down to one movement that throws this guy effortlessly? And yeah, I love it. I love it. The outlook.
Yeah, it is good. I think it's only something that I've started. I'm going to get my judo license and hopefully start getting graded alongside, because I want to compete as much as possible. And in Ireland, judo's a lot bigger than jiu-jitsu. Judo's quite big in Ireland, so it'll give me more opportunities. But any sort of martial art in any sort of academy is good to learn, especially when you can tie it all together.
Yeah, I found, honestly, like, we've talked about this a lot on the show, but I think jiu-jitsu and judo and wrestling, like, they're all really the same martial art, which is grappling. And they all just have these different faces and these different rule sets and different styles, honestly. Just kind of like how there's different types of striking. Like, Muay Thai and boxing are both striking, but they're different. You know, they're different styles. And there's different moves and different rules in the specific tournaments, if that makes sense. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, if you find a really high level judo school and the jiu-jitsu is not at the highest level, but the judo school is world class, mean, that's probably going to be better training, honestly, like
Yeah.
because it's at a higher quality, So like over in Europe, for example, judo is like super high level, almost at the same level as Japan, if not even a little higher in some places. So like, yeah, dude, take that freaking opportunity because might be some of the best training in the area.
Yeah, and especially the problem with being over in Ireland as well is we have zero wrestling. Like wrestling's just not in our culture at all, which is such a shame. You have the odd MMA wrestling class, but for your stand up, you are going to have to go judo, which is there's negatives to that, but then there's obviously competing in the gi and practicing in the gi. It's a massive advantage.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. And you learn a lot of grips and it's a lot of fun. Does your judo place do the leg takedowns, like the single leg and double leg, or did they not really train that?
No,
No.
there. I'm not like I'm still not too sure about the rules, but I think in the judo rule set when you're standing, you aren't allowed to touch the legs,
Yeah,
something like that.
not yeah, in tournaments you can't, but a lot of schools still train it, just even though like they don't allow it in the tournaments. Some schools still train it. But yeah, a lot of them don't for sure.
Yeah, but so far we haven't. I haven't seen anything of the leg, and I think the first class I went, I tried to hit a double leg, and I got pulled pretty quick.
Oh yeah, can't do
You
that.
can't do that.
Oh yeah, no double legs. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, a lot of the judo schools, they that's how most of them are. I'm a bigger fan of the more old school judo because the rules of judo used to be that you could do the leg takedowns, and all those takedowns are in the judo curriculum. But yeah, most of the schools don't do it, which I think
Yeah,
is
and was that
unfortunate.
what was the reason they bring that in? Do you know?
Well, they changed the rules because they wanted when judo became more of an Olympic sport, they wanted to distinguish it from wrestling. And
Okay.
to the Olympic committee, wrestling and judo looks basically identical because they are. If if you have the leg takedowns and basically the same thing. So to further distinguish them, they added that rule. That way they couldn't just have wrestlers go over and dominate all the judo guys. They wanted to distinguish judo from from wrestling, basically, and
Yeah,
so they made that part of the rules. But I mean, I think it's kind of a dumb reason. It's like literally just because you want it to look a certain way on television, you take out a big part of the martial element. And I'm not a
yeah,
big fan of that. That's one of the
yeah.
reasons I stopped doing judo back in the
Yeah,
day.
there's a lot to be said about the Olympics, like and the Olympic karate as well. I think a lot like karate fighters would be against the way the they have it set up. Like I remember the guy got knocked out. It was one of the perfect throws, and in the Olympics the karate guy got knocked out, and because he knocked the other guy out with his kick, he got disqualified. Yeah,
Yeah, stuff like that. I'm like, dude, come on. Like that
yeah,
everyone knows it's bullshit sort of thing.
yeah. You can't be winning if you're lying face first on the ground, like.
Yeah, exactly.
But
Man. Well, dude, this has been a lot of fun chatting. We got to wrap this up. I've got to go. I'm going to go teach our judo class actually here at Jiu-Jitsu Outlet. And yeah, dude, thanks so much for coming on the show. Is there anything that you want to promote or talk about before we wrap this up?
yeah, I've launched my website with my friends. We're doing automation consultancy.
Oh,
It's our
cool.
side project now. So there's a wee website. If you could link it, www.auto-mateconsultancy.co.uk. So if anybody has any sort of business or any sort of processes that they think could make use of this, we do free consultations. And from them free consultations, then we can develop your whole bespoke automation system.
Dude, that's awesome. So like that's like if I have something that I'm doing in my company and I want to try to use technology instead, I'd talk to you guys.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly
Okay.
it. It's everybody hears the word AI and is getting scared of the word AI. So you come to us and we'll explain it to you and we'll teach you a bit about it.
I
That's
love
the
it,
plan.
man. Well, teach us about it real quick.
Well, what we're doing at the minute is we're making assistants and booking assistants. So when people go on to like Facebook Messenger and say someone gets 100 Facebook messages a day, the first project we've done for company is we've created an assistant that uses ChatGPT in the background through Facebook Messenger and a knowledge base just to answer back any questions. So specifically, it's a car valeting center. So they have all these different car washes, and it can tell you about what products they use. So it just makes it easier for the people in the company who don't have to reply to all these messages every day. It's for the monotonous tasks. Let the robots do the monotonous stuff.
That's awesome, man. Well, that's really cool, dude. I want to learn more about that too. But dude, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'll put the link down below if people want to connect with you over that. And dude, Oisín, thanks so much for coming on the show.
It was lovely seeing you again, Paul. It was lovely
You
chatting.
too, man.